So my main goal for this today is to film a video so impactful that a random person that I've never met before years from now messages me and says, Christian, that video you made back in 2026 was amazing and it completely changed my life. So before we get stuck into this today, my name's Christian Hill. Make sure you've hit subscribe to the channel, and I'm the founder of Ready for Anything, a coaching program for high performers, entrepreneurs and execs who want to go all the way and connect the dots between their body, mindset, lifestyle and career and be a true high performer, because I honestly believe that so many folk are in roles of leadership and they're not actually a leader. So I'm going to help you piece the puzzle together and actually step into being that person. So who is this actually for? It's for someone that's obsessed, someone that's lost in their career, lost in their business, and they just have huge ambitions to have a lasting impact. So much so that they've actually lost friends in the process of doing that, but they've also put their health in the back burner. They've also lost the way a little bit and actually lost a bit of fulfillment in the process of doing the very thing that they love. And it's for someone that can see a lot of value in personal development and how improving yourself is going to improve everything that's actually important to you. Because as someone that's career driven, as someone that's an entrepreneur, as someone that's in a high up role that's responsible for other people, you don't have a strategy issue, you've got a state issue. And 9 times out of 10, it always comes back to the person. So many people are always trying to pass blame to everything else, their circumstances, the time of year, their environment, the quarter that they're in, their clients, the time of year that is. It doesn't work like that. It comes back to you, and you being someone that's very aligned, that's operating with a calm mind, that's got a strong, healthy body, that's got undeniable standards, is going to make you hard to beat. And it's going to allow you to be someone that can lead the way, set the standard, and actually thrive in the areas that you want to thrive in. So it can seem like you're going back the way. It can seem like you don't have a lot of time, but trust me, this is going to give you back everything that you need and more some. This is going to give you everything that you're actually chasing right now. But it's probably very important to highlight who this isn't for. So it's became very aware to me that over the years of coaching and mentoring becoming a lot more readily available and a lot more known, a lot of people are aware and conscious of what personal development actually is. And as a result of that, a lot of people can fall into the trap where they intellectually masturbate. What this actually means is that you're consuming a lot and hearing a lot, but you're not actually listening. So if you're someone that's got quite a big ego and you're doing well, you've achieved a bit of success, but you can't embrace a level of humility, and you're always nodding your head and agreeing and never actually looking for the similarities and always looking for the differences, then you're not going to take a lot from this. The people who do the best that we work with are the ones that embrace a high level of personal responsibility and humility, and humour the fact that they're learning, and we're all human beings that have flaws, that make mistakes, that trip themselves up from time to time. So yeah, be humble, stay humble, and you'll take so much away from this. So you're going to walk away with a lot from this, and I'm going to highlight some of the key areas that we really specialise in. You're going to learn to break free from vices and compulsive tendencies around gluttony and greed, essentially around food, alcohol, something that's got a bit of a grip from you. You're going to learn how to crush old and outdated systems and belief patterns that are holding you back and keeping you stuck that you don't even know about. Because if you did know about them, you'd probably be doing something about them. How to create routines and systems that are so effortless and frictionless that they actually give you back time and energy, and you feel like you've got none of it right now. And how to actually develop a level of consistency that makes you hard to beat in everything you do, and will allow you to make progress 365 days a year, not just for little pushes when you lock in. But the most important one is actually how to become so aligned with yourself that energy feels like it's never ending. And over the last 9 years, I've dedicated my entire life to self-improvement, and that's why I've helped hundreds and hundreds of people transform their own life. But ultimately, my biggest walking testimony was me. This has never came naturally to me. I was the complete opposite of who I am now growing up. I'm from the west coast of Scotland in a small town called Irvine, where let's just say the small town mentality is rife, and you're kind of encouraged to just stay in your lane and stay in your box. So trying to be someone that's trying to make a name for themselves, be courageous, do things, go against the grain, zig when everyone else is zagging, is a very hard thing to do. So I know firsthand the mental blocks that you come up against, the limiting beliefs that can consume you. And ultimately, I know as well, because I had a lot of toxic traits and behaviours growing up surrounding alcohol, weekend behaviours, partying, drugs, drink, alcohol, everything, you name it, which then bled into food as well. So I have been through this change. I have been through this transformation, and this is something that I've truly broke free from, and I want to show more people how they can do that as well. So the funny thing about being a human being is that we like to act like our problems are more complicated than what they actually are. So I've already outlined that we specifically work with a very niche and particular type of person, high performers, entrepreneurs, execs, people that are very career driven. But at the end of the day, problems are problems, right? No one's reinventing the wheel here. We all struggle with a lot of the same vices. We all struggle with a lot of the same things. And obviously, depending on where you're from in the world, what society you grow up in, your upbringing, certain beliefs that are maybe in certain areas is going to vary slightly. For example, being from Scotland, like, we're known for being people that like a drink. Therefore, there's going to be a very high likelihood that you struggle with compulsive tendencies surrounding partying, drinking, drugs. That's not to say that people in other countries won't struggle with this as well. They absolutely will. And that's from meeting a lot of different people from all over the world. But Scotland is rife. Now, in other countries, it might be different to do with your diet. Look at India, for example. Look at the tendencies that you have growing up in big family households where everyone's encouraged to eat a lot of food, and a lot of people in India struggle with obesity. So there's certain tendencies and behavioural patterns that pop up. But going back to the point that I said before, the most common denominator between people that are career driven is that they're strung out. They're tired, they're mentally frazzled, and they've got a lot of open tabs in their brain, and they've got a lot of people depending on them and a lot of responsibilities, which creates three big problems in my opinion. Number one, compulsive behaviours and tendencies that have never been addressed, and it's almost like you've kind of just switched the witch for the bitch. You've just jumped to another thing, and you've not really addressed the problem. This is the most common one. I want you to imagine addiction is a bit of a scale, right? It's a spectrum, right? At one end, you've got the extreme addiction where like someone's literally lying in the gutter and they need something as a dependency, drugs, alcohol, whatever, and they're sitting there like that scene in the movie Dodgeball where you can't stop eating. And then the other end of the spectrum, you have a bit of an argument with your partner, you have a stressful day at work, and then you have this urge and need to just like eat out of comfort, grab a chocolate bar. To the untrained eye, everyone's like, it's just a chocolate bar, but you had to do that because there was a level of need there to replace a void that you had internally within you. That's the spectrum right there, one end to the next end. If you've worked in a career where you're really, really strung out, maybe you don't drink anymore, maybe you don't party anymore, maybe you've got a very different life to what you had in your teens, 20s, 30s to what you have now. But unless that you've done a lot of work on these areas, you've probably just switched it with something else and you've not really addressed the real issue here. So that's number one. The second one is experiencing a level of mental fatigue and exhaustion that you've just normalized in your life. Essentially, you're just mentally and physically unregulated. Your energy's up and down. You're dependent on essentially substitutes like caffeine to keep you going. You're highly stimulated, and essentially you're in a high state of fight or flight because your body's so fatigued. You might even find that when you even take time off, it makes you feel worse than what you do when you're actually working because your body's so frazzled from just being frazzled all the time. Essentially, you've trained yourself to be so highly strung, but you've got to a point where you've done that for long enough that you're just like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I have done this for the last 10, 15, 20 years. I've seen in some cases where you've lived in a certain way, but now you're in your 30s, mid-30s, 40s, and you're saying to yourself, something needs to change here. And I want to show you exactly how we go through this process with our clients and how we help them actually go about doing that. And then number three, limiting beliefs that you've engineered that you don't even know about. I touched base on some of mine before, how I'm from the west coast of Scotland. I'm from a typical background where you kind of go on a certain route and a certain conventional path, and when you break away from that, a lot of people can question you. This is just ingrained in every single society in different forms, different tendencies from the household that you grew up in. Like, the troubling thing about being normal is that normal is based on your idea of normal. Yes, there's like a sort of generic standard and there's like generalized things that people talk about, like going getting a steady job, secure paycheck, making sure that you can go and get a pension. These are like typical narratives that you hear in most societies, like being able to retire, have a holiday home somewhere. These are like really, really sort of normal ones, but the ones that nobody really talks about are the limiting beliefs around what you're capable of actually doing. Because the hard thing about this is that you know deep down that you are capable of more. You actually have every ambition and every desire to go and crush it in your life and have a lasting impact. And you want a level of status, you want a level of impact, you want a level of fame. But there's also a massive conflicting story going, you can't pull this off. Who are you to even try this? Why are you going about this? Like, what are you even doing this for? Because you're going to fail anyway. These are limiting beliefs. And the hardest bit to get your head around is most highly successful people have some of the biggest drive and belief in themselves, but also some of the strongest limiting beliefs. And this is why a lot of people do this for a long period of time, and they can make themselves very unhappy and strung out as well. And I've been here before myself, but I've got to the point where I've been so in the process of doing what I need to do that I actually stopped doing what I want to do. And that's this trap that a lot of very career driven people can get into, where you've almost like created this like mental framework and structure to get you through things, but it's outdated and it needs to be crushed, it needs to be destroyed, it needs to have a new identity put in, and it needs to have a layer of skin shed. And it's almost like you need to break through to that next level. What got you from A to B will not get you from B to C, and so on after that as well. It needs to keep going like this. The biggest delusion that a lot of people have when they're highly driven is that they're aware and conscious of getting uncomfortable, getting out with your comfort zone, putting yourself in rooms that's going to grow you. But people become overstimulated and understimulated by it, where they think they're still doing it, where they've actually just built complacency within discomfort. Think about it. Like, the stuff that you do on a daily basis would have freaked the old version of you the hell out. But that's just your new normal. That doesn't mean that you're still getting uncomfortable. That's you just created a new comfort zone. And you have to keep expanding that. You have to keep going beyond that. And it should give you the heebie-jeebies. It should, like, the change that you went through initially, where you broke away from the narrative and people gave you a hard time for being obsessed, that needs to keep happening. Like, it needs to keep happening at every single level. I'm not saying that you have to be in this constant push all the time, but it's almost like you're climbing a mountain. I want you to imagine, like, if someone climbs Mount Everest with oxygen, right? Obviously, if someone does it with no oxygen, they're a savage, but they're also someone that just goes straight up and down. Obviously, they'll stop to sleep or whatnot. But if you do it with oxygen, you have to get to certain base camps and levels, and you have to acclimatize. Otherwise, you get hypoxia, which is like, I think it's like not blood poisoning, but it's basically where like fluid gets into the lungs and you die. But basically, like, you don't live a good life, put it that way. And basically, when you climb Everest with oxygen, you have to get to a level and you have to acclimatize to the altitude so that your body can adjust to it, so that you don't get hypoxia and get really, really sick and have to come down the mountain. That's the way you need to imagine your journey. Is like, you have to climb and then you have to acclimatize, but there'll come a point where you have to crack on and move, because you're staying and getting comfortable in a spot where you're not meant to stay there. You have to move on. You've created an environment that's unstable, that's volatile, that's predictable, which was great to get to there because you set these goals, but now it's time to move on. And this is the biggest misunderstanding for a lot of people when they're going through a journey of change. If you're a fan of the movie Spider-Man, Uncle Ben says it best: with great power comes great responsibility.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
A lot of people love the idea of the goals, the lifestyle, the physique, the health, the energy, the opportunities, the success in their career. And when they actually start doing it, the hard bit isn't the long days, saying no when you want to say yes. Like, everyone thinks they know what the hard bit's going to be. The hard bit is when you actually start succeeding and you start to experience the things of that person. So the envy from other people, the ridicule that you experience, people trying to put you down, the questionable things that happen. The bigger you are, the harder you fall, and the more you grow and the more you take on, the bigger your problems are going to be. So ultimately, you can't just get to base camp and go, this is my new home. You have to keep moving. Then eventually you're going to get to the top of the mountain, and then you're going to realize at the top of that summit, oh my God, there's a lot more mountains here. So I understand that you probably have an understanding of limiting beliefs and getting comfortable being uncomfortable. But I'm being honest with you right now, you probably don't realize the scale of how big this actually is. It never ends. And when you get to the top of that first mountain and your visor's lifted and you can see the horizon and the landscape of all the other mountains there, you will realize that this journey never ends. And for me, working with so many people, and like I mentioned earlier on, the people with the big egos, they're actually only on base camp 3, but they think they're at the top of the mountain. And anyone that thinks they know more than they actually do, that's the big telltale sign that it's the beginning of the end for them. The people that do best at whatever it is that I've ever surrounded myself with, I've worked with some of the best in the industry when it comes to business, physique, health, mental performance. And you know the common denominator between all of these people? They're so humble. They don't need to brag about what they do. They don't need to tell anyone about what they do. They just let their actions do the talking for them. So if you're someone that's like, you talk about how much you know, you talk about who you used to be, you regularly talk about all the things that you've overcame, you're focusing too much in the past. Like, you're just getting started. Yeah, you've probably achieved a lot, and I'm not taking that away from you, but you need to let that go, because that's your ego trying to protect you at the base camp. It's trying to keep you there. You have to remember that you're only acclimatizing there, but there comes a point where you have to move on, and you have to understand that there's always going to be beliefs that are trying to protect you, and they go a lot deeper than you're letting on. I want to touch base on the processes that people have typically tried and why they no longer work and why they need more for where they're already at. So I want you to imagine self-improvement as a game. You've got level 1, you've got level 2, you've got level 3, level 4, level 5, and so on. And it just keeps going. I used to be someone when I started out as a personal trainer that had a vendetta against certain processes, slimming clubs, different things. I don't want to name any names in case they get blanked out in this video or I get in trouble for it, but you know what I'm talking about here. I used to slander that they need more education in place and they need to be doing this and they need to do that. I'm just trying to give you a bit of an idea here to like what level 1 is. Everything has a place. Everything has a need, and these things do exceptionally well. But the thing that you need to remember in this journey and going through the levels is that they're like stepping stones. When they become wrong is when you stay in them and you stay beyond what you should stay there, and you far surpass the amount of time you're meant to be there for. When they're wrong is when you overstay your welcome. Like, these things, especially in the infancy of your journey, are stepping stones. They're like building blocks. There comes a point where you have to go to the next thing and the next thing. So the trap that I see a lot of people fall into when it comes to self-improvement is they keep going back to something that's quite immature for them, that is no longer going to serve them for the period and season of life that they're in, and they actually require more stimulus. So if you keep going back to the same personal trainer, the same online coach, the same photo shoot, the same thing that's like a little bit of a dangling carrot in front of you, you're not going to get that stimulus. I have been every single one of these people through the coaching journey. I started off as a personal trainer and bootcamp guy, all the way to where we are now as a health specialist and mental performance coach. And what I've realized throughout this is none of these parts are wrong. Like, none of them are. But the reason where they become wrong is I've been at every one of these stages and I'm having the wrong conversations with people. And what I mean by that is that I've not been conscious or aware enough or educated enough, or just I've not had enough experience as a coach to help people and give them what they actually need. And there's been different stages of my journey where I've actually felt like they need to go to a therapist, or they need to go and speak to someone else, or they need to go to a counsellor, or they need to go to see someone with addiction, or they need to go and get help in this way because I can't help them on this capacity. That's why I've went through this journey, because we approach our coaching with a multi-dimensional stance. So all of these things that I've mentioned before, obviously there's people within these different sort of professions and points delivering a high caliber service, but a lot of them are one-dimensional. They help you with one thing. I'm going to help you with your training. I'm going to help you with nutrition. I'm going to give you this. I'm going to give you that. And it's very basic. The thing that I've came to really understand, because I've been through this journey myself as someone that's very career driven, is that I understand that you don't have a lot of time. I understand that your energy and focus and bandwidth essentially isn't as free as what it once previously was. And you actually value just being told specifics and just actually identifying what the root cause actually is. A lot of these things are giving you stuff that's going to help you, by the way, but it's not actually tackling the issues that you have, like I've already spoke about, the three big ones: compulsive tendencies, being strung out mentally, or actually having a lot of identity issues. Yeah, going to see a personal trainer is great, or going to see a one-to-one coach for nutrition or whatever that is, or physio work is fantastic, but that's not actually what you need. You need a multi-dimensional approach that's going to identify the roadblocks and tackle them. And over the years of me doing this, working with so many different therapists, mental performance coaches, health optimization coaches, nutritionists, I've actually seen all the gaps. All of these approaches are one-dimensional. Not to mention the fact that they're very generic, so you could be going to work with someone that doesn't actually understand or get your challenges. I get them more than ever. I get there's a hustle and grind mentality. I get that you feel bad and feel guilty and feel shameful for not doing what everyone else around you is doing. These are the things that we specifically work on. We look at the identity, we look at the mental blocks, we identify the gaps, and we crush them brick by brick, step by step. Along with that, we have a plan, we have strategy, we have training, we have nutrition, we have health optimization. But the things that you actually need aren't more strategy. You need to elevate your state, your thinking, your consciousness so that you can get past that point. Because as someone that's driven, committed, I know that you don't lack drive. I know that you don't lack motivation, but there is a reason deeper than you're letting on that's stopping you from getting past that point, stopping you from seeing yourself through a different light and actually getting to a point with your health that you've never gotten to before. So one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is not being process driven and being person driven. So what does this actually mean? It doesn't mean that we throw away processes. We highly regard processes, but one of the things that I really see with a lot of people going through like health optimization, fitness improvement, and actually trying to just improve themselves is that they're trying to follow a strategy that isn't really relevant to them for the stage you're at. So I'll give you an example of this right now. Nutrition is a big one here. The classic one is, here's your plan, here's your macros, here's your steps, go and do that thing right there. A lot of people have a very toxic relationship with this stuff. So as soon as these things are presented to them, it's almost like, you know, when you go in, I don't know if you have a dog, if you're watching this right now, have you experienced what it's like to go home and see a dog? They have a little behavioural pattern that happens. So we've got a family dog, Sky, and when I go in, she just does the same thing. It's so sweet. She also does the same thing for my fiance, Ailey. She also does the same thing that's different with my mum, and also does the same thing for my dad. It's like clockwork. It's the same if she hears certain noises, words, or even if we're talking about my auntie Gail, her head pops up and she knows. It's because she's very subconscious. We do the exact same thing as human beings. Although we have a conscious, our subconscious is very, very strong. So when you're presented with these like almost triggers of, you need to track, you need to hit steps, you need to do this, I'm not reinventing the wheel and say we're going to tell you not to do that. But what we're big on is actually trying to unpack, rewire and reconfigure what the real issue is. That may mean in some cases that it takes you longer to achieve the desired result that you want, the weight loss, the improvement in body composition, the improvement in health, the improvement in consistency. But depending on how severe and how outdated those systems are and how toxic they are, You need to do a lot of work to get past that, and that's the space that we are in. So there is a crossover where, yes, we are going to give you a process. We are going to get you to commit to a point, but we follow a philosophy of going through the gears. So gear 1 would be like top end, putting a lot of pressure onto you. So that would be like, we're in a really good flow, we've got a really good relationship, we've got really good rapport, we know where your sort of gaps are. Gear 2 would be, you're someone that's still a little bit reluctant to push in because you've got some battle scars and you've got some bad experiences and you've got some open wounds, but we're still going to apply pressure to you. And Gear 3 is someone that is like, they're almost got like open battle scar wounds. They're fresh out of a war zone when it comes to their health, their nutrition, and their self-esteem's quite low. We understand that depending on where you are, we need to give you the right approach so that you can get past the hurdles that you're at. Because the reason why your self-esteem and your confidence keeps getting bashed down as you jump between personal trainer, online coach, group training, online 12-week transformation, whatever it is because they're trying to force down a generic process that isn't actually tailored for you. And all it's doing, because you're familiar with it, by the way, is worsening your state of mind. It's actually weakening your mindset, and it's making you more fragile to the point when you even think about the word diet or improving body composition or weight loss or cutting, you get shivers down your spine because you're so exhausted from doing the same process that isn't actually serving you. And there will come a point as you travel up those gears that you build more trust with yourself. And that's where our philosophy, doing what you said you would do, which we are just so obsessed with, comes from. Because as someone that's been through a huge journey myself, I put myself from overcoming all these limiting beliefs that I've had, crushing behaviours surrounding alcohol, food, all the way to completing some of the hardest triathlons in the world. I have been through that process, and at every stage of the process there is an element of trust that needs to be built. You need to do the work, you need to follow the thing that's laid out from you, you need to become someone that is undeniable and has undeniable standards. That's why it's one of the cornerstones of our program, and this is where doing what you said you would do comes from. Because if you want to be someone that gets things done and doesn't trip up every single time things get hard, you need to build the trust, and you need to get it bigger and bigger and bigger. And the only way that you're going to do that is being clear on what the pathway is to get there and figuring out what your minimal effective dosage is. As soon as a client comes into the program, our first thing we do is we do a full health screen, and we identify where all the gaps are, what is it they want, what is it they've struggled with, what is it they've done in the past, why hasn't it worked, and we come up with a strategy. But in this strategy, we figure out what the minimal effective dosage is. A lot of people are very big on giving you maximums. I'm not big on maximums because everyone knows what their maximums are to achieve results, basic results with their health. They know that if they hit X amount of exercise, X amount of movement for a certain period of time, they will achieve said result. But the reason why they always fall off after that and end up on the same sabotage cycle is because they don't know what their minimal effective dosage is. So inside our program, we focus on minimal, bare minimal, so that you can actually gain momentum. And there'll be some days, depending on where you are when you come in this journey, where you're able to achieve more because you've obviously gained a bit of momentum. But right away, we need to focus on less, because less is actually more. More isn't better. Better is better. And there's a reason why you keep falling through the same cycles. So how our full method actually works is we've got two main systems. We've got our 3 pillars, and then we've got our 3 phases that we take every single client through. These kind of layer on top of each other, and they kind of complement each other. So our 3 phases are infancy, growth, and maturity. Within each one of these sections, we're going to take a client through each part that marries up with our 3 pillars: a calm mind, a strong body, and undeniable standards. Now, the goal for this is to ascend through all 3 simultaneously. As I said already, this isn't the same for every single person, but what we're really looking to do through these different points is first identify the mental blocks, identify the crippling behaviours. Obviously, remember when I say the word crippling, sometimes people disassociate themselves. Where are you on that scale? Are you very basic, or is it quite intense? And then lastly, we want to create the blueprint, the strategy to get to there. That's like step 1 when anyone comes in. And within that, what we're trying to really do is shed a layer of skin and really, really break it down so that you can go to the next point. This is an unsettling phase, because throughout this point, we're going to get you to do things that are not only hard physically and challenging, but they're going to really, really be essentially unsettling for you mentally. You're going to be going against the grain and rewiring. And this is why our philosophy is very different, because for years, I focused on all the physical work, the habits, the routines, the behaviours, but we have really integrated the mental performance side to this as well. So it's very important from the get-go that you identify exactly what these are. So I want to actually explain how Ready for Anything works. So everyone that joins Ready for Anything, whether they join the main program or the Pro Accelerator, is they come into Ready for Anything. That is our flagship health, personal development and fitness program, helping leaders put the leader back into leadership, basically, helping them build a strong body, a calm mind, and create undeniable standards in everything they do in their life. But then we have the Pro Accelerator program. How this came about was last year, I played about with our offer, played about with how we done things, and I was so proud of Ready for Anything. It's a premium bespoke service, and when I was thinking about different tiers, I was like, right, it's going to be down the way. We need to do something that's less than what we do already. And I tried that, and it didn't work because the type of person that I attracted and the service that we could deliver just wasn't up to the standard. I'm someone that's so big on one-to-one coaching. So the only way was to go was up the way. And we toyed about with the pro program last year, and then basically at the end of the year I went to the drawing board and I sat Ailey down and we sat for a couple of hours, and my question to Ailey, who is obviously the other half of Ready for Anything, was, if you were to take one of our clients that are in the program right now, and we actually used one as an example, I won't name any names, and I said, if you were to get them 12 months of results in a 12-week period, how would you coach differently? And when I say results, I'm not just talking about physical results. I'm not just talking about weight loss here or stacking on muscle. We can't defy physics. We can't defy biology and get people doing things at a faster rate. Yeah, you can make the boat go a little bit faster, but there comes a point where there's just a line. I'm talking about deeper psychological, mental shifts, and that's where we came up with the Pro Accelerator program. This is a supplementary coaching package, which is essentially elite level health optimization and mental performance coaching, where we really strip it back and go deeper than you've ever gone before. And this is going back to the point that I mentioned already, connecting the dots between everything that I've learned on my journey within my scope of expertise and bringing it all together. This is a full blood panel, really going a layer deeper with a health and mental performance audit, where we lift up the hood and ask some very, very deep and uncomfortable questions. And we essentially tap into an area that's never been tapped into before, alongside doing a lot of physical work. As I said already, everyone is in the main program. This is just a tertiary elite level of coaching that we add on top of what we already do. And I'm very proud of it. We've been running it this year and we've seen massive success in the last month that we've ran it already. And this is really becoming our mission. And for years I've been doing this, and I can only describe business sometimes as rubbing your head up and down a rough casted wall. You feel like you're a couple of degrees off creating something, and I've been in this space for a long period of time. I've done this for 9 years now, and I've always felt like I should be further ahead than what I am. I've always felt like I've not been able to actually vocalize or piece together or express what we do, and I honestly believe we're there now. And I just think with the work that we're doing, the momentum we're gathering, like, this is you hear the saying, it takes 10 years to make an overnight success. I can honestly understand that saying, and I'm so proud of what we're doing here and what this is going to essentially do for our clients and the lives that it's going to impact in the future as well. So it's very, very exciting. So I know that we've covered quite a lot today, and I know this can be quite a lot to just digest and take in. So I want you to do two things right now. Number one, I want you to just take some notes, hit pause, consolidate, and just sit and think about what you've been going through, what needs to happen here, because as I said already, you can fall into the point of intellectually masturbating and just consuming stuff and then nothing really happens, or you can actually be someone that just sits and consolidates the information that they've consumed and how that actually applies to their life. And then number two, make sure that you've hit subscribe to the channel. So obviously this is the main part that everyone wants to hear. How can you actually take this into your life? It's all well you sitting there nodding your head going, yeah, Christian, I understand this, I resonate, I get you, I feel you, like you're speaking my truth right here. But you actually need to know, how do I take this into my life? How do I actually overcome these mental blocks, these limiting beliefs I'm experiencing, and the compulsive tendencies that I have around weekend behaviours and food? So let's start off with the best part, eating. So the first thing we really need to do here is we need to apply a level of acceptance, and we need to give this the appreciation and respect that it deserves. So a lot of people, when it comes to their nutrition, what they put in their gut, their lifestyle, they overcomplicate the simple stuff and oversimplify the complicated stuff. So I'm going to give you a really good rule that we give with our clients right now that you can apply. It's the 100-day rule. In order to actually achieve progress or whatever it is you're doing, you need a strategy, you need a plan, but you also need a level of consistency. I don't really believe in SMART goals, because the second last one, realistic, isn't really ambitious, and it's not really going to be something that challenges you and actually makes you get up and go. We believe in the 100-day rule, and the reason for this is if you're going to do something, commit to a significant amount of time that's going to let you rewrite the code, see lasting results, and actually change what's going on in there. Because see, if you do 30 days, right? A great example of this is giving up alcohol for 30 days. A lot of people do this in the month of January after the Christmas holidays. That's not a challenge. That's you taking a break from something you're exhausted from because you've just overdone it. Anyone can do that. Now, I'm not insulting anyone that has an alcohol dependency or an addiction problem. I'm not saying that your problems aren't significant. They are. But generally speaking here, if you've just drank basically for an entire month, is it really a big ask to take a month away from it? No. If anyone's trying to build a level of discipline and rewrite the code in their mind, they have to commit to a process. So that's why I would suggest doing the 100-day rule. So committing to a transformation for 100 days, committing to sobriety for 100 days, committing to not going to a place or associating with a certain person for 100 days, committing to doing a daily habit or a behaviour for 100 days. I get that it's important to build things up and obviously start as you mean to go on, but at the same time, it's very, very important to commit to a process, because the person that you'll be at 30 days is going to be very different from the person at 60 days and going to be very, very different from the person at 90 days. When you started this, you might have started it to take a break because you were tired, exhausted, but I can guarantee you by day 75, you're going to be like, oh my God, this has given me a full new level of fulfillment and I'm going to have a totally different why by this point. So if you're setting like short goals that are realistic according to the SMART goals, they're not going to test you. The full point of doing something hard is that it's hard. It's meant to make you question yourself. You're meant to hit wobbles throughout that. And then the second rule is that you're the average of what you do most. So this is a concept that I regularly speak to clients about. So I've mentioned already that you need to have a minimal effective dosage in place. What's the least that you can get away with doing that's going to help you get results, essentially, right? So I want you to imagine that as amber. That's the least that you can do. That's an amber day. So the least that I could do in a day to get results with my physique and my weight loss and my composition would be like, I want to at least hit like 8,000 steps. I want to be within my sort of calorie target by like 10%, and I want to hit a half decent session. Doesn't need to be a great session, but it can be a half decent session. I want to get to bed by a certain time. I want to do at least 30 minutes of learning in a day, and I want to make sure that I'll get my phone away by 9 p.m, right? Or cutting off from caffeine at 2 p.m. or whatever that is, right? That's like an amber day. It's like an alright day. If you do that every single day and you don't do anything groundbreaking, you're actually going to have groundbreaking results in 100 days time. Now we need to imagine on the other side of the amber, we've got red and then we've got green. So a green would be obviously you've just done above and beyond what you've done, right? You've just surpassed it. You've just crushed a high amount of activity. Your training session was on point. Your mood's been great all day. You've connected with other people. You've organized something in your week that's really, really good for you. You know, one of those days where someone asks you, how are you? You're just like, I'm doing great today. I've done this and I've done that and I've done this. That's a green day. And then you get a red day. A red day is when you're behaving like someone that isn't conducive to the type of life that you want. This is the way I want you to look at it, right? Now, when we're going through a journey in that 100-day rule, you're allowed to have amber days, you're allowed to have okay days, and you're allowed to have red days. But everyone thinks that every day needs to be green. It doesn't. How your diary needs to look is like green, green, amber, amber, green, amber, green, red, green, 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 amber, amber, green, amber, 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 red. The ratio of amber and green to red needs to be dominating. Too many people live like green, red, amber, green, red, amber. Realistically, you can't be having any more than 4 red days in a month. Now, the more you go through this flow of change, the more you go through this shift in identity, you won't want to behave like that. But initially, when you're letting go of sabotaging behaviors and compulsive tendencies, you need to recognize that there's going to be a big part of you that feels familiar with that. You're actually comfortable and complacent with being someone that doesn't like doing things. Like you're actually complacent with eating poorly. You're complacent with feeling bad in yourself. You're complacent with feeling lethargic. You have found complacency in a stage of your life that you don't actually like. That's when folks start to identify as lazy. But that brings me on to the second part. Self-identification. You need to be aware of the language that you're using and the words that you're saying that are keeping you stuck. So if you're saying things like, I've always been like this just runs in my family, I'm just lazy, I'm all like, this is who I'm destined to be, then guess what? Surprise, surprise, that is who you're going to be. So you need to change your language. You need to be so aware of the words you're using, the things that you're saying. Are you justifying your actions? Are you making jokes about yourself? Are you being the class clown? These are just ways that your ego is protecting you from changing, because going to the next level is uncomfortable, it's unfamiliar. And as I said already, your brain doesn't care about you being happy. Your brain just wants you to stay safe. So if you've created a lot of safety and being unhappy, it will do everything in its power to keep you there. So I know this is quite an in-depth explanation to consistency, but this is the stuff, the simple stuff that people overcomplicate. And that's why I wanted to go into that. Now, on the flip side to that I mentioned already, people oversimplify the complex stuff. Now, what I mean when I say this is that, especially when it comes to nutrition, I'm going to be really honest with you here. People are very surface level, and most people's understanding is, let's say, it's like nursery level. It's like calories, protein, like so basic, eating healthy. It's almost like you're just saying woof woof, bark bark. Like there's no real meaning attached to what you're doing. And a lot of people are saying the same words, but in their head, it doesn't actually have the same meaning attached to it because it's just noise. They may as well just be barking, as I've said already. And then not to mention, there's a lot of beliefs that you have grew up with that you think are normal. I've touched base on this already, but if you grew up in a household where binging every Saturday night was the normal for the first 16 years of your life, and you've never done anything to change that apart from move out of your house and move in with someone else, are you surprised that you've still got scars from it? Are you surprised that you're still greedy and gluttonous? If you grew up and spent 7, 8, 9 years of your life, just like I did, binge drinking, then you've got a lot of work to do to rewire and change that. I want you to imagine it's a bit of a neuro system, right? It's like a neural network in your mind, right? If you were to it's almost like a dome. And when you're born, that dome doesn't exist. Well, it is, but there's no wiring in it. So you're super malleable, you're super unaware. And that's why the saying is ignorance is bliss. Because the older you get, the more experiences you have. And this is why so many people turn into anxious messes, because they're just thinking about things that haven't even happened yet before they've even happened. They're anticipating problems because they've had a bad experience doing something, like I said already, working with the wrong people, having the wrong conversations about the wrong things to fix a problem that is nothing to do with the thing that they're trying to do. This is the trap that people fall into. So the system that you've created in your mind is now outdated. It's not to say that the healthy habits and behaviours that you do are incorrect or they're not got good intentions behind them. They absolutely do. But there comes a point where you have to start to challenge these belief patterns. Now, what we do with every single client when we come in, we take them through a health screen or when they come into the Pro Accelerator program, is we really, really ask them a series of questions that really identify the beliefs that they have surrounding certain topics. Food, body image, self-esteem, where they compare themselves, those negative beliefs we experience. And then we go into that. And it's basically a series of whys. If you've ever heard of the framework before, the 5 whys, if you just ask someone why they believe something 5 times in different ways, you will get down to the root cause of it. Now, a lot of people are having conversations about things, and it's almost like their problems have become their identity, where they, let's say, for example, someone is a warrior. Someone actually takes it upon themselves to say things like, yeah, I'm a warrior. It's no, you're not. You've made yourself that person. So you have to be very careful with the labels that you attach to yourself, because these labels then actually start to create almost like a mental prison. So that neural network starts to, as you get older, you reach your 20s. When you're young, it's not filled all the way to the top. So that dome that I've spoke about already is half lit. By the time you're in your mid to late 20s, it's full to the brim, and there's a lot of solidified beliefs there. And what you need to do to change that is work tremendously hard. Now, I'm going to give you another analogy. So once you've identified what the beliefs are, where they've came from, you maybe worked through it with a partner or a friend or your fiance or your husband or your wife or your coach or whatever that is, because you're watching this video and you've got down to the bottom. Oh my God, I've never acknowledged this before. I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. I can't believe how much my parents messed me up. We're all messed up by our parents, by the way. Even if they love you, it happens. No one's having a perfect life, by the way. It doesn't exist, right? Once you've got to that point and you've identified what the root cause is, you have to come up with a strategy to change that. As I mentioned, the language you used is a big one, so identifying what that looks like, but also identifying what are the tendencies and behaviors that you do that almost solidify that. So an example around nutrition would be let's say, for example, you've got binge eating tendencies or you've got compulsive behaviors when you go out for food. And it's almost like a junkie going to a crack den, right? They know they're going to take crack. So your friend says to you, we're going out for a scran on Saturday night. Are you coming? And you're like, yeah, where are we going? And then they're like, I don't know, something fried chicken shack. And your wee brain's lighting up. It's like a Christmas tree. And you're almost starting to taste the fried chicken. You're almost starting to feel it, think about it. Oh, I can get some pints when I'm there as well, or I can get a bottle of red wine. You need to start to actually be right, what are the series of things that happened before? And how can I change these? And what would be me going against the grain? So I don't want you to cut things out your life. I still want you to socialise. I still want you to see people. But you have to almost be right, what's the series of events that happen and how can I change them? So it might be saying to your friend, who's going? Oh, it's just me and you. Oh, do you want to go somewhere else? Or you might say to them yeah, I'm actually going through a lot of change right now and I'm really trying to improve my health. It's not to say that I don't want to eat foods like this, but I know right now, if I go somewhere like that, I'm not at a point in my journey right now where I feel in control enough yet, by the way, that's a good idea for me. That'd be step 1. If you feel that you're going to go somewhere and you're going to be going like a junkie going into a crack den, don't go there. Don't put yourself in an environment that's going to trip you up. In Alcoholics Anonymous, they call this a wet place. So it's like someone going through I'm using the example right now of extreme addiction, right? Why is extreme addiction not the same as mild addiction? Why is it people treat it differently? Oh yeah, it's not that bad, but I'm still going to do it. If something has a compulsive control over you and you cannot say no to it, it's an addiction. People are addicted to their phones. So just treat it the same way. Look at the areas in your life and identify the things that trip you up and be like, right, for the next 100 days, whilst I'm going through this change, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to drink alcohol. I'm not going to hang about with that person because they bring out a bad side of me. I'm not going to go to that place. I'm definitely not going to go to a rave whilst I'm going through this change here. Identify what the wet places are so that you can actually be in a better spot to navigate these things. And then going back to the point I said before, like, you need to know what are the triggers, what are the series of events that happen on the lead up to you going to that event where you don't feel in control, and you have to start to instigate a strategy. So what we'll do when we work through it with clients is, let's say for example, someone's got compulsive eating behaviours, binge eating tendencies that they feel very out of control. Obviously, we'll tell them to vocalise to us, speak to us, but we'll talk them to talk through what they're feeling, what they're thinking now. And essentially what you want to do is you want to then come up with a framework and strategy that's going to allow you to deconstruct that. Are you still going to feel the compulsive need to do the thing? Yes, 100% you are. You're going to get to a point where you're going to feel that it's almost like a dirty urge. You're going to feel shameful and guilty about it. That's fine. But come up with a strategy that breaks that. Talk to someone. Speak to someone. Like, negate it in some way, shape or form so that you break that cycle. Because when it's in the head, it's dead. And when you don't vocalize it and you keep it all internal and you're consumed by all these negative feelings and emotions, you're not going to change. And it's just going to be the history repeating itself, going through the same cycle, expecting different results. And going back to the point I said before about taking a one-dimensional approach, when you focus on very basic things, I hope this is connecting the dots as to why you're feeling the way that you're feeling and why you're not achieving the results you're achieving when it comes to your health, when it comes to your body, when it comes to your performance, when it comes to your energy, because you're not looking at the deep-rooted stuff. Another simple frame that I regularly use myself is more of a saying. So everyone works differently, everyone receives information differently, everyone like operates in a different frequency and energy, but for me, like, actually telling myself a story and a narrative is very, very important. Now, a lot of people let perfect get in the way of good when it comes to their health, when it comes to self-improvement, and it's why they lose consistency. I always remember I worked with a coach years ago, and he once said, you're the average of what you do most. I don't know what it was, if it was like, I might be saying this to you right now and it might mean nothing to you, but it was almost like the right words from the right person. And for me, I had still a lot of behaviours and beliefs surrounding my nutrition, surrounding my training, surrounding my consistency that was consuming me a lot of the time, and I was very, very focused on the how and the what and the when, not thinking about who I was trying to be. And when he said this to me, it just gave me permission to be imperfect. And that's what I want to really land from this right now, is like, just do what you need to do. It'll be ugly, it'll be tiresome at times, it'll feel like you're dragging your knuckles at times. But if your average is higher than what it previously was, then you're only going to get better. Going back to the point that I said before, green, amber, red. Identify what a green day looks like. Identify what an amber day looks like. Identify what a red day looks like. And just make sure that you've got more green days than red days. Minimize them. 4 max in a month. And if you think like this, I'm telling you, it's like someone's taking the shackles off of you and you're like, oh my God, I can actually do this. Because if you are someone that's being consistent, right, and you have seen results and you have seen change, I'm saying this to you right now, you're not as far away as what you think. And this is the issue that I'm seeing a lot, especially when people are doing deep dives, they're going to verbal therapy, they're doing breath work, they're going for different means and methods, is that you get to this point where you start to become a bit aware and conscious that like things are deeper, right? But the issue with this is that people start to let it consume their identity, and they actually think they're all a lot further away than they are. I know I'm speaking very broadly here because I don't know who's actually watching this video right now, but read the temperature of the room. You might be going through some big breakthroughs right now. It might be making you feel very, very uncomfortable almost watching this video right now, going, oh my God, I can't believe how much my mum messed me up. I can't believe what my dad said to me when I was younger. You're not broken, man, right? Everyone's going through this journey together. Everyone's going through the same thing. No one hasn't had a thought that you are having. Think about that. So if you think your thoughts are crazy, wacky, you're guilty, you're shameful about them, let that go, because that oppression of who you're trying to be and that inability to actually express yourself is the thing that's making you so mentally contracted. So this brings me on to a very important part and a concept that we introduce our clients to, is energy. So I used to hear people talking about energy and I used to be like, that's very woo-woo, right? The funny thing that I've realised and came to terms with over the last years, I'm very woo-woo. Maybe I don't have crystals hanging around my neck, but I do believe in manifestation. I do believe in attraction. I do believe in energy. But I'm going to explain to you from someone that isn't your stereotypical woo-woo, who's very, very personal development focused, that's going to essentially bridge a lot of gaps around this. So we've got 2 different planes of energy. The energy that most people knows is the physical energy. So it's your sleep, it's your eating, it's your training, it's the stuff that you do in the physical world that stimulates momentum. So like getting up in the morning, being active, being in routine, having structure, getting movement done, getting your training done, eating well. It's going to give you energy over the course of the day, because as the day goes on, your energy diminishes. So if you're someone that is front loading your day, a master of energy production, you're like a power plant, you're going to be unstoppable and you're going to see good results. Now, where a lot of people ruin their energy, right? Because when we talk about energy, a lot of people are tired, they're dragging their knuckles through life. Coming on to the second point that I made earlier on about they've got a lot of mental blocks and their nervous system emotionally and physically is unregulated and they're tired all the time. Yeah, it can come through their diet and their lifestyle, what they're eating, what they're not eating, what they're doing, where they're wasting their energy. But there's also the internal energy, the emotional energy. And I want us to break this down into a few different fields. If you're constantly suppressing yourself, not being true to yourself, not actually operated through someone that's connected to themselves, and you're just in this constant think all the time because you've engineered your life to be like that and it's achieved you success, you're going to get to a point where you feel bent out of alignment. You're going to feel tired doing things that previously didn't make you tired. That's not because of the strategy, by the way. That's because of the state of mind that you were in at that season in your life. And it probably makes a lot of sense as to why you keep going back to the same processes to get a different result. Because at one point, at a different season and chapter of your life, they served you. It helped you. But now you need to come to terms with the fact is that you're not there anymore. You don't want the same things as you wanted when you were 20, now that you're 30 or now that you're 40. You're at a season in your life where you have to meet yourself a bit differently and you have to meet yourself where you're at. Now, this is why some people in their 20s can have everything in abundance and can be doing all the right things and have no energy. And it's why someone in their 80s who is well further on in their life, way more weathered, their body isn't as capable, they don't have as much muscle, their body's just older and more tired, yet they have more energy because they're more aligned. This isn't the case for every 80-year-old, by the way. I know if you look around, not every 80-year-old's like this, but why is it that you can come across certain people, and who's coming to mind right now is Ailey, my fiance's grandmother, Rose, who's 90 years old and is the most independent 90-year-old I've ever met in my life. She lives on her own. She drives, she gardens, she does all her own cooking, she goes to church every single Sunday, she's a big player in the community. She's got a lot of drive and purpose, and as a result of that, yeah, she's maybe not as physically capable as someone in their 20s, but she's got so much energy and she's someone that's so aligned with what she's doing. This is like deep internal energy. If you can get both of these aligned, you can get your physical aligned and you can actually learn to connect to yourself and operate with the things that you want to do, speak your truth and not wear a mask through your life. It's like a recipe for someone that's like an unstoppable force. And this is what a lot of folk don't realize. If you can live in alignment with the type of human being that you want to be true to yourself, not care what others think, and actually just take action on your goals whilst following a well-executed plan, looking after yourself and being healthy, you've sussed it. You've cracked the code, and that is the business that we're in. We want to help folk get to this point because that is easier said than done, ladies and gents. That is a hard task to do because chances are you've probably engineered a huge part of your identity based on who you think you should be, not who you want to be, based on who you think you should be. The pressure that your parents have placed on you, the pressure that society's placed on you, the path and the route that your career's led you down, the sunk cost fallacy that you feel that you can't walk away from something because you feel like a failure because you've spent the last 10, 20 years doing it and you feel like it's a waste of time. That's just a story. That's just a narrative in your mind. The thing that you need to be asking yourself in times like this is, what would your 80-year-old self tell you right now? What would the theatre be screaming at you if your life was a movie? What would they be telling you to do? Because see, when you start operating like that and you're taking action on your goals and you're setting up a strategy to get there, man, like this is when people ask the question, how is it some people are so motivated? What I'm talking about here isn't common knowledge to a lot of people. It really is not. But some people have just accidentally done this. I say accidentally, they've not done it accidentally, they're just very aligned with operating through what they want, and they're also very clear on what it is to just be a good human being. Nobody's perfect. Everyone has discrepancies, everyone has weaknesses, and everyone has things that they do in their life that they're not proud of, and everyone's just working to be better, right? Well, not everyone, but I'd like to think most people. And ultimately coming to terms with this understanding of how your mind works and the structures that we've created and challenging that is like the simplest way to look at it. So yeah, so that's obviously the first step, is we want to identify what the mental blocks are, what the compulsive behaviours and tendencies are, and then we want to create a strategy that's going to get you there. And this comes down to our 3-phase model that I've shown you already in the screen, that I'll show you again. Strong body, calm mind, undeniable standards, taking you through our 3 phases: infancy, growth and maturity. I've just explained to you there the full part of infancy, right? So now we'll move on to talking about growth. So you've now got past the point where you have crushed the limiting beliefs, you've identified the behaviours that are holding you back, you've done your 100 days, you've gained a lot of momentum, you've seen undeniable results, you're feeling unbelievable. Well done, you're on level 2. You're just getting started. And I want to talk to you about a little bit of a concept, and I want to explain it for the means of baking a cake. So if you've ever done any baking before, or if you haven't, I'll explain to you right now. Baking is a science. You have to follow the instructions. You don't guesstimate. You have to put in the exact measurements and follow the exact guidelines if you want to get that cake looking exactly how it is in the instructions. That's the facts. You can't do it any other way. So if it says 100 mils of water, it's 100 mils of water. If it says 50 grams of butter, you have to put in 50 grams of butter, and you have to specifically put it in. But when we get to that baking process, so I want you to imagine that first 100 days, going through that infancy phase, is just laying the ingredients out, piecing them together, and mixing everything up. So you get everything sat out on the table and you're ready to stick it in the oven. What this actually represents is you coming away from pain. So if you've never heard of the pain-pleasure principle, it's just this idea that all human beings are running away from pain and running towards pleasure. A lot of people, when it comes to their physical health and their mental fortitude, they can spend the majority of their life in pain. They can spend their majority of their life tolerating a way of being that they're not happy and content in. Look around you. Like, I'm in the UK at the time of recording this right now. 60% of the population is overweight, probably more now. And even at that, what is health, right? I've said it already. It's just like a buzzword. It doesn't actually mean anything. People base it on your BMI. Someone can be vaping, eating a highly processed diet, not hydrating themselves properly, spending the entire life inside playing games, but they've got a healthy BMI. It doesn't mean they're healthy. So we have to understand that, like, this is a bit of a spectrum again, going back to the point that I said with addiction before. I'm just trying to paint the landscape and help you understand that health is a very, very generic word that a lot of people tie different associations to. So you need to imagine that the ingredient sat there for the cake is like you finally getting out of pain. Most folk never ever get to the point where they're ready to put the cake batter in the oven. They never ever get to there, and they spend their entire life just putting the ingredients out, kicking them off the table, throwing them off, getting them everywhere and restarting again. That is the sad reality for most people when it comes to their health. The point I'm trying to introduce you to here is that this is only the beginning. Now, when you've spent so many years of your life running away from pain, it can feel like a head orgasm when you're no longer in pain. Just being free from compulsive behaviours or tendencies, or not feeling doubtful, shameful, guilty surrounding your actions, is almost like you're winning. And rightly so, you are winning. But I just want to remind you, you're only getting started, and it's very important that at this point you press your foot hard down on the gas. Like, you push so hard on that accelerator, because you're just at the early stages of this right now, and the code needs to be rewritten. So you've put the cake into the oven, and now you've started to see the flour and the cake batter react. That's just it getting started. Now, at this stage here, you really want to start to get clear on what your blueprint and what your strategy is. This is the sort of idea and language that we use inside of the program. And this is where it becomes very, very important to have a physical strategy to get there, a plan, things that you do, what your week looks like, and making essentially a week that you can just repeat over and over that's going to get you really, really successful, right? Everyone understands the concept of this. Well, I'd like to think so if you're watching this video right now. But then we also need to have some sort of mental performance and personal development work that goes alongside that. That could be like a daily journal entry, that could be like a weekly plan, that could be like a monthly reflection that you do with your wife or husband or your fiance, your partner, your brother, your sister. There has to be mental work that goes alongside that as well. And once you have both of those things basically done there, that's great. And this is what you're going to then rinse, repeat until further notice. And as I've said already, if you're in a season of your life that you know you're going through a lot of personal growth, you just need to get the blinkers on at this point. You need to get the head down, and you actually need to take the outcome off the table and just become someone that just falls in love with the process. Because in the process of doing this, you realize that that's where all the fulfillment is. You realize that that's where the golden era is. You realize that that's where the magic happens, because a lot of people at this point can say, I know I'm not where I want to be yet. Once I get to this point, you're missing the point here. But every time you deviate away from that thing, every time you cut corners, every time you let more red days crop in, you're opening the oven door for the cake. What happens when you open the oven door? You're messing up with the instructions. You're getting a half-baked cake. The cake's going to be sad. It's going to be floppy. It's not going to taste the right way. It's not going to have the right texture. So stay true to this and just show yourself some respect at this point and just go all in. Lock in hard in your goals, lock in hard the momentum, and get the blinkers on. Remove the distractions and just put yourself into a season in your life. You're like, the work that I do now is going to pave the way for the future and give me so much more freedom. If you have children, use children as your fuel. So many people now with children are like, my children are the most important thing in my life. It's like, why are you disrespecting yourself? Why are you building tendencies and behaviours that are going to be bred into what they do. It's going to bleed into them. Like, they observe you. You might not be saying things to them that are, you're telling them to do anything doubtful or cynical. Like, your intentions are great, but your behaviours and this energy that you're giving off, because we're energetic beings, they'll feel it and they'll feed off of it. People don't accidentally pick these things up. It's all taught. It all bleeds into everything that you do in your actions as well. So use the people that you care about. Use your team, your staff, your clients. Like, be the standard. Because you can only take someone as far as you've taken yourself. And the further you take yourself in this journey, the better your life's going to get. And then moving into maturity. Maturity is the section where this is now part of your identity. This is part of who you are. Not doing the thing is way harder than doing the actual thing. At this stage of your life in maturity, it's very important that you actually start building up networks and relationships that are going to complement you. This is where I see a lot of people just hover and stay in growth. They've seen good results, they've seen good momentum, they've seen good change, but they're still holding on to a lot of old parts of their life that are keeping them stuck. If you have a friend circle and friend group where out of everyone that you spend time with, you're the person that's the most ambitious, the most driven, the most hungry to chase self-improvement, you're in the wrong friend group. I'm not saying get rid of these people. I'm not saying that at all, right? I don't want anyone to twist what I'm saying here. I'm saying you have to work very, very hard on building new networks. And this isn't really about what you need to do from an actual strategy standpoint. It's understanding the size of the change that you're going through. A lot of people are very misinformed when it comes to going through change. They think it's like, just give me that thing. Once I get to here, as I said, that's you just getting started. Most people never get past level 1. Most people scratch level 2 and then stay at that point. But they don't realise that, as I mentioned already, this is bleeding into everything. It's bleeding into your career advancements. It's bleeding into the growth of your business. And you becoming the person that is an asset to yourself is going to make you an asset to other people. And the only way that you're going to do that is through finding other people that are way further ahead than you. And this is something that a lot changed for me when I was 26 years old. It's around the time of the pandemic. It was, in fact, 25, I think I was. So I'm 32 now. This was 2019. And basically what changed for me is that I started getting around people that weren't just a little bit ahead of me, but they were way ahead of me. Now some people will tell you that you want to be around people that are just a few steps ahead of you. I completely disagree with that. You need to be around people that are great people first and foremost. You don't want to just get around people to expand your network just for self-improvement purposes. You want to get around people that you actually want to spend time with. I think that's a really important part. But you want to be around people that are doing things that are so far ahead from your scope of knowledge that it just holds a magnifying glass up to you and makes you evolve. It makes you be so much better than what you already are. That should be the goal. And that's exactly what I'd done when I was around the age of 25, 26 years old. I started investing in myself, joining coaching programs, mentoring programs where the standard was just so much higher than what I ever experienced. It just forced me to evolve. And even just observing other people's tendencies and natures, that just made me seek it in my own life as well. So being exposed to the standard that you aspire to be is really what reaching maturity is all about. Engineering your life in a way that it suits you. Looking at your day and looking at your week in a way that's like, right, if I was to repeat this day over and over, how can I engineer a day and a week that, like, if I was to repeat this for the next 52 weeks, I'm going to be in a wildly different spot. That is the goal when you're reaching a state of maturity, because up until that point, you've had a tail between the legs. And do you know what happens when you spend a period of time here? It gets to the point where you have to repeat the cycle all over again because you've just acclimatized. What I've just explained to you, that full phase, infancy, growth, and maturity, applying our 3 pillars, strong body, calm mind, undeniable standards, working through everything that I've done right there, which sounds like it's probably over like an 8-9 month period, is once you've done that, acclimatized, it's time to go again. And this is what personal growth looks like. If you're getting to 1 year from now, so right now at the point of recording this video, it's the 3rd of March 2026. If I get to the 3rd of March 2027 and I don't have any lessons, or I can't look back and laugh at something I was doing or a conversation I was having or something that's dead obvious to me then that wasn't obvious to me now, I have not went through any personal growth. That's not a good sign. So if you're having consistent years where you're seeing professional growth, but you're looking at your personal standards, your health, your nutrition, your body, your self-esteem, your beliefs, and they're still the same as what they were 1 year previous, then you have a lot of growing to do. And you need to wake up to the fact that just because you're doing well professionally, making some money, and you've got some wealth coming your way, doesn't mean that you've cracked the code. You've not cracked the code because you're going on a nice holiday every single year. That's a conversation I have with people where they say, I mean, my life's good. And I'm like, how so? Can you explain that to me? Well, I go on a nice holiday and I've got a nice house and I'm like, who told you that that's what life was? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, who told you that that's how you measure the success of your life? Nobody. That's just what I believe. Well, do you not think that their beliefs are maybe holding you back? And they're maybe counterintuitive to everything that you're actually struggling with and everything that you actually want? So understand that there's a lot of narratives that are deeply ingrained into us that we don't actually even stop and acknowledge are keeping us stuck. And the only way that you're going to have them challenged is for being around other people that are way further ahead than you and shaping your life in a way that's going to be complementary to everything that you want, but most importantly, making sure that you want to do it. Not doing it because you need to do it, not doing it because you think you should do it, and not doing it because everyone else is doing it. Doing it because you want to do it. There is always going to be a trade-off. Like, you cannot build muscle without testing and damaging the muscle. You cannot make more money without battering a storm. You cannot get better at a skill without going through a season of eating, you know the word. You have to go through these points of pain. Like, you can't go through life. It's delusional to believe that there's not going to be any pain. Pain is the requirement to grow. But at the same time, you need to make sure that, who am I doing this for? Because when you're fully aligned with yourself and you're doing it for yourself, it becomes easy. It becomes frictionless with the right strategy, with the right plan to get there as well. So I hope you can see that the one-dimensional approach, why it doesn't work, why you keep coming up against the same hurdles, why you keep getting the same results or getting to the same points, is because it's a lot deeper and it's a lot bigger than you're making this out to be. And for you to break past that, you have to understand that you need to get uncomfortable. And in an effort to get uncomfortable, you need to realize that you're not as good as what you think you are. So I think it's actually a good time to talk through some of our clients that have seen huge success utilizing our method and going through the entire process. So this is a client, Roslyn. At the point of recording this, Ros just took on the Tokyo Marathon at the weekend and actually was the first overall 6-star finisher. That was our 6th major marathon that she completed, and she did on a 2:51. Now, one of the big shifts that we really went through as a coaching program is that I can only explain it as I felt like Matthew McConaughey breaking away from rom-coms and going to serious movies. I've been known as a fitness guy for years, but I'm a health optimization and mental performance coach, and you may be thinking, is that not the same thing? You've just showcased out there one of your clients that have just ran a marathon in 2 hours and 51 minutes and seen huge success. When Ros started working with us last year in April, she was a well-accomplished runner. She had ran 5 major marathons. She had seen a lot of change in success over 5 years of doing a lot of work on herself, and she's actually working a very, very demanding job in London as well, and she's climbed the ladder there. She's a very, very impressive woman, very, very intelligent, so extremely capable. The work that we done with Ros wasn't just centered around her training program, it was actually centered around everything that I've spoke about today. Her limiting beliefs surrounding herself, her capability, her relationship with food, and essentially rewiring and going through all of this. I'm not going to share the results on here because I don't want to actually show you the before and after, because I know it can mess up the sort of YouTube algorithm on here, but when Ros came in, she's went through a mad transformation. She's lost a lot of weight. She's seriously improved her relationship with food, herself, and broke a lot of limiting beliefs along the way. That's how she achieved the 20-minute PB. Yes, she's consistent as hell. Yes, she followed the plan. Yes, we're very good at programming when it comes to this stuff. But that's just one part of our flywheel. If we didn't focus on everything else that we've spoke through today, she would not have achieved the result that she achieved. She wouldn't be in the condition that she's in. She wouldn't be as free as what she is surrounding nutrition. She wouldn't feel as strong and aware as she actually is, because a lot of this was psychological. It wasn't physiological. As I said, she was a dedicated runner. She had done 5 major marathons. She had taken her marathon from like 4.5 hours, I think it was, to like 3 hours and 10 minutes. But in the last 9 months, we took 20 minutes off of that for a hell of a lot of physiological work, but also a lot of deep work as well. And it's transcended into everything. She recently got a promotion as a VP in her company. I'm not even going to try and name the name of the company because I always get it wrong in London. And she's actually making a big change up in her life and heading to elsewhere. I'm not going to announce what she's doing as well because it's personal plans. But yeah, it's transcending into everything: relationships, energy, confidence. And yeah, this is what happens when you throw the kitchen sink at personal development and do a lot of work in yourself. And this is our client, Connor Armstrong. So you see a guy that's traveling the world, that's working remotely, that has an online business, that feels amazing in his body. But I also see a guy that shed a lot of layers of skin. Prior to working with us, Connor used to work in McDonald's. He struggled with obesity for a large part of his adult life, and he had a lot of outdated systems and belief patterns surrounding food that were keeping him stuck. And this journey has been no means easy. It's been a lot of work. He's through so much effort and energy into personal development, and since day one, he has just been a student of the game. But that is why he's seeing all the success he's seen in his life. He went from a guy that worked at McDonald's to living in Bali in Indonesia as a remote worker, feeling the best he's ever felt within himself, feeling the best he's ever felt within his body, pushing his body, testing his body, because he changed outdated thought patterns and belief systems that he created that he felt were never going to be gone. He thought he was going to have to live with these the rest of his life, and he's completely eradicated them because of the effort that he's put into changing. So I know this has been quite a lot to digest, and as I said already, if you haven't done so, just take a moment to consolidate, look at your notes, reflect, sit and take down the parts, or even go back to some of the areas that you felt were really applicable to you and listen to them again. Don't rush through this stuff. I often say to our clients when they come in, don't watch through the education like it's Netflix. Watch through what you need to watch through, digest what you need to digest, and don't turn this into a game where you're just trying to read as many books as you can or watch as many personal development videos as you possibly can. Actually sit and digest the information. Think about how this applies to you. Take a moment to sit and breathe for 5 minutes. 4 seconds in through the nose, 6 seconds exhaling through the mouth. You just sit alone with your own thoughts. Your brain's probably going 100 miles an hour right now. It's probably like a Christmas tree lighting up with so many different ideas. You probably feel very seen and heard. That is excellent. And if you haven't done so already, make sure that you've hit subscribe to the channel. So before we close things off, I just want to consolidate everything that we've been through and essentially give you the best ability possible to go away and hit the ground running hard so you can actually implement this. So you've obviously taken in a lot today. I've spoken about a lot of different topics. The main thing that you need to understand is what are the 1 or 2 action steps that you're going to take from this. You're not going to do everything in it. And actually, you're probably quite busy and doing quite a lot already. That may be removing something. That may be just doing the 100-day rule. That may be actually bringing someone in or taking action. That may be reaching out to myself to actually being like, you know what? I need to work with you. I need this help. I want to fast track my results, because being fully transparent, this is going to be the cheat code for your results. This is going to be the thing that makes the boat go faster, that removes the friction, that actually allows you to achieve everything that you want to achieve. You just have to pay for it. Like, this is what I've done up until this point. It's why I'm able to sit here fully convicted in myself, fully convicted in my ability, fully convicted when it comes to all of my actions, because I have done what I am telling you to do right now. And it's not even sleazy. It doesn't come across like that, because I believe in it so much. So if you're at a point right now where you're actually sitting there going, I need this guy's help, do something about it and we'll help you and we'll get you amazing results. Just don't be someone that's got a massive ego. Otherwise I can't help you, because you need to be someone that's willing to surrender to this. The second thing that you're going to do is you're going to look in the description below this, and I've actually added some questions that will allow you to really go over everything that we've went through today so that you can actually consolidate this and identify what those 1 or 2 things are if you're struggling to do it. So don't worry, I've got you covered. And lastly, I want you to just go over your life with a fine tooth comb and be like, what needs to be removed? What needs to be taken away? Who do I need to just let go of? Who do I need to introduce myself to? And just have a bit of a clear out. Social media, like, who do you need to unfollow? Who do you need to follow? What do you just need to detox and clean digitally, mentally, emotionally, physically, that just needs addressed right now? Because a really good analogy for life is life's like a hockey puck table. So remember when you were younger, I don't know how old you are if you're watching this right now, but you got the air hockey tables where they blasted air out of them and then the air hockey puck just floated on the top, right? I want you to imagine that, like, when you start out a journey, there's like 20 pucks on the air hockey table and you bring them all to the centre. So at the beginning, everything's so grounded, it's so clear, you've got a clear strategy there. But over a period of time, one will drift away, another will drift away, another will drift away. And before you know it, 6 months have went by and they're all spread out over the table. And each one of these pucks represents a different thing: energy, health, nutrition, beliefs, relationships. And it's very important that you actually get to the point where you consolidate and bring all these back in together so that you know the exact direction you're going to go into. So when you're bringing them back together and you can see what they all look like, there'll be some in there that are outdated. There'll be some in there that you don't need to have, but because you've done this for so long, you might think, oh, that's what I need to do. These are the foods that I need to eat. These are the people that I need to speak to. This is the thing that I need to sign up to. Have a look at them long and hard and be like, what am I just doing because I'm familiar with it? And what am I just doing because there's a level of complacency and comfort there with it? I know this is quite a cheesy saying, but the sky is quite literally the limit when you put your mind to it. Everything that I've done in my life, I'm very proud of. I'm 32 years old now, and before I was 30, I honestly boxed off everything I ever thought I could. I'm not saying that to be unambitious. I still have goals in my life and ambitions, and I always will do. But if you really focus on improving yourself, turning yourself into an asset, you will naturally attract yourself to the right people, to the right situations, and everything will come your way. This is my understanding of what manifestation actually is. I used to hear manifestation and I'd be like, that's a load of nonsense. Manifestation is very real, but how I believe it is through how you position yourself. And if you position yourself as a key player of influence, a person in the room that people can lean on, that radiates good energy, that has standards that are very obvious, people will naturally levitate and come towards you. And it can be the most silly things. It can be like group activities where the leader's picked, you'll naturally start to notice that you're picked. It'll be when you walk into rooms and you maybe never met folk before and you'll be naturally levitating towards someone else that you can evidently tell has similar beliefs and values to you. Like, this stuff will transcend into everything that you do. And there's a lot of things in your life right now that you're probably sitting on. Business ventures, promotions, like, I don't know, just chasing and pursuing dreams that you've just sat on for years because you've just turned into someone that says they're going to do things and never ever follows through with it. You taking action on this won't only give you everything in your health, it'll give you everything that you actually feel that you need right now. You realize that you don't need it. You realize that it just happens as a result of you working on yourself. So if you're going through a point right now where your health maybe has been in decline, or you're feeling very, very mentally fried, and even watching this video has felt so uncomfortable because you felt so guilty for taking time away from something else you're meant to be doing. It is a hard journey, and changing everything that you know about yourself. Why should it be easy? So understand that, like, this can seem like I'm going back the way, I'm not being true to yourself. That's nonsense. You're absolutely being true to yourself, and the only way for you to get by this mental prison that you've created for yourself, by the way, is actually zigging when you really want to zag. And it can be very, very uncomfortable. I just need to remind you though, it's going to give you everything in abundance. It's going to give you the wealth that you want. It's going to give you the relationships that you want. It's going to make you into that man or woman that people want to be around, that's energetic, that's funny, that's calm, that's very, very in touch with themselves, that can hold a room in a conversation that people just levitate and naturally gravitate towards. Like, you doing this work is going to give you that. It's going to give you everything that you've felt so frustrated about not having. The answers lie within. And the more you do the deeper work, the more you free yourself. But one thing I just want to warn you of right now is, don't fall into that motivation trap. Don't fall into that point where you've had a lot of things highlighted and you're feeling very energetic, you're feeling very driven, and you go away and do the same impulsive actions you always do that you know always lead to the same roads, which pretty much goes against everything I've spoken about today. And it's so hard because it's done with the best intentions. Don't do it. Take a different action that you would never do off the back end of this, because if you just fall into that trap of intellectually masturbating again, you just fall into that same cycle where you're getting a dopamine hit, you're feeling excited, you're feeling like you've done something productive, you feel like you've connected dots and you're not feeling as down about yourself or as stuck as what you once were. Take massive action off the back end of it. And if you are someone that's at that point and I've described everything that I've said, like, do something about it. Take action on your goals, because what are you actually waiting on? Everyone's always talking about, I've got this thing coming up, I've got that thing coming up, like when I'm not as busy, once we get to April, once we're at the Christmas holidays. If you've chosen a career path where you're in a corporate job, a high pressure environment, or you run your own business, I hate to break it to you, the quiet time doesn't exist. You've chosen an unstable path that is like a railroad track that's getting pieced down piece by piece as the train is moving on at 150 miles an hour. It doesn't get easier. You improving yourself, you actually being like, right, this is so against what I'm doing, is going to be the thing that gives you freedom. It's going to be the thing that gives you everything that you want. So as I said previously, if it is something that you want help with, you need assistance with, do not hesitate to reach out, touch base. We'll chat, we'll talk things through, we'll dive into exactly where you're at, and we'll get you results that are going to completely transform the landscape of your entire life. And obviously, you've made it to this part of the video. I just want to say a massive thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate your attention for this, and I hope you've taken a lot of value and you've taken a lot away from it. And as I said, my goal for this is for one day, years from now, someone to message me and say, Christian, I watched that video years ago and it changed everything for me. And as I said, do not hesitate to reach out and drop me a message if you need any assistance on achieving life-changing results.